It's a hello, everybody, and welcome to the very 15th episode of a very special guest, Comrade. Who are you?
Me? Oh, I'm John. John the Duncan
Hi,
on YouTube.
hi,
Um,
hi, John. How are you
yeah,
doing today?
I'm doing okay. Uh,
Nice.
you know, been to the gym, read some books,
Fair.
day in the life.
No, that's understandable. My day today was waking up and then being like, okay, I'm gonna take a break from the online world and take a bath. It was amazing.
Oh,
Self care,
nice. I'm not in a bath in like years.
right? No, genuinely, it's like I feel like when you're on the move so much, it's like you can't sit down and stuff. And it's like the funny thing is, it's like I I, I always find it funny because it's like I was growing up, my parents were always like, you have all the time in the world as a kid, which kids do, and then when you're an adult, it's like this. Everything's always moving at you, and no one realizes it until it's too late.
Mm. And it also feels like if you're running a bath, you also legally need to have a glass of wine as well.
I
Um,
I don't drink, but that sounds very lovely for a bath.
yeah,
Maybe I'll get some fancy grape juice for next time, you know.
yeah, exactly.
But it's like I don't know, just getting relaxing, listening to some video essays as I do it because video essays are my books at this point. But yeah, welcome to the podcast. So one of the thing that caused me to invite you on, of course, is we are both chicken run experts,
Mhm.
and
Foremost, yeah.
foremost because you got your video on your channel, which is um, is it communist chicken run too, which I loved as an angle and stuff within the whole
Mhm.
film because that is a insane film to watch normally, you know.
I mean, I've got the two videos on Chicken Run. I've got
Yeah,
the first one, which was Chicken Run. The original is the greatest piece of communist art ever made, and there's no question
yeah,
about that. There's no
totally.
there's no indication there is any, oh, is this communist? Is not. No, it is communist, and there is no question. The second one, there is a bit of a question about
Yeah,
whether it's communist or not. And my job in that video is to um, make it communist.
yeah. No, I was impressed with that whole thing within the stuff too, as someone where it's like, cause we both wound up doing like nearly hour-long videos on Chicken Run too. Mine covers like you got two videos of the whole subject. For me, I jumped much more into it on the second one, right? Because it's like I was like in December, ooh, this is gonna be a fun long video essay to make. And then 3 months later, it comes out, and then like hardly anyone's talking about the film nowadays because it kind of just like
Yeah,
vanished, I guess.
it didn't do very well, and that's unfortunate for me because it's reflective of people not really caring about the video.
Right.
Um, the first one was like by far the most successful video I ever did, like a couple of years ago. Even with copyright restrictions, it ended up getting like 150,000 views. I don't
That's
think I
insane.
don't think the original one is available in America anymore because of copyright. So there's an uncopyrighted version which is like 6,000.
I
But like,
I actually think it is available in America. I can double check this as we're doing, but I think I saw that one in the pool. I also saw your uncopyrighted version. When I saw your uncopyrighted version, I thought that was your first version for a second, but then yeah, dude,
yeah,
copyright sucks.
it's really annoying. But
It's yeah,
yeah, the way that I was banking on people actually giving a shit about this movie because I need a fucking win.
right.
And I need to. I've been chasing getting up to 50,000 subscribers for a long time, and I was like, okay, this is some nice content, some fun content. People like Chicken Run. They didn't really care about this movie.
Right. Well, and so the whole thing. Okay, so can confirm the video is available in America. In America, Americans can see it. Um,
Okay. You should watch the non-copyright one though, because
okay.
that's the one that I get paid for.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's the thing that sucks about the copyright system, right? You can have the most fair use things in the whole world, right, for videos, and then for some reason, YouTube's gonna be like, no, it's not fair use. How dare you?
Yeah, it was because there's like one clip about halfway through the video that where I use like 11 seconds of a clip instead of 10, and that
Ah.
was what made it copyrighted. So the non-copyright version is literally just trimmed 2 seconds off, and it's
Yeah, no. See, for me, my one of the second one. So my whole shtick, right, is it's like my area I sacrifice from is editing whenever I can, right? Because I feel like that's the area where it's like if you're reviewing something, you can cut corners a little bit more there than like in writing or recording, you know. And I kind of went with the whole loop thing, but one of the few things that I did was there was a rejected song. I think I told you about this in your live stream actually, from this
yeah,
person named Sophie May, who did this rejected song for the sequence instead of what was actually like the song they went with like the Paloma Faith song, which in the second
mhm.
film, which it sounds fine, but it does not fit the vibes of the film or the setting at all. You know, it feels it.
Yeah, the one that was rejected was much more sort of 60s vibe.
Yeah,
Um, was much more fun for that setting.
and it's like, because the setting of it being 60s and stuff, like the political elements of Chicken Run are undoubtedly one of the most fascinating things of the whole thing, because the first film is extremely communist. You are
Yeah.
correct. It's crazy because it's like you literally have a system where it is built on the oppression of the workers and stuff within this. Um, and George Orwell should be shaking in his boots.
It's funny because like, you get so many people who are like, oh, it's just a Great Escape parody, and you're like,
And
well, first of all, don't be so boring.
yeah,
Second of all, there are so many clips where Mrs. Tweedy is like checking down the declining rate of profit,
yeah,
is like obsessed with profit. It's like, the most famous line in the movie is the chickens are revolting,
yeah.
and they're organized.
Well, and I think the crazy thing within it, right, is it's like the funnier the comparison that I'm realizing a bit more and stuff, because it's like I grew up reading like Animal Farm, right, in school and stuff, and it's kind of crazy when you think about kind of some of the parallels with the what a lot of with the characters like representing things, because it's like the other things within the film is it's like the chicken farm is literally a concentration camp for chickens. Like that's
Mhm.
the way that things often just show up to be, or that's the way that the imagery is presented, right, within the first film, with how dark everything is. And then it's and the film gets away with like everyone watching it and like understanding that it's like fun, because it's with chickens. The film would be so much darker with humans.
It would, but I mean, it does have the most horrible scene, probably of any film ever, when they take the chicken and you just see it get axed
Yeah.
in the shadow. That's I remember as a kid just being like I would fast forward through that because it made me too sad.
No, I didn't have that as a kid, because I didn't fully understand it as a kid, because again, doesn't speak, not really a character within that front. Um, I but I think the thing with it within it and stuff too is it's like it's crazy, because again, in the second film tries to recreate like that kind of like horror, right, with the whole like, or not horror per se, but like the whole chicken dies moment, and it's like not nearly as effective in like any way, because it's like you're not seeing Tweety do it by her own cold hands. Like the Tweeties themselves, I think, are some of the highlights of the first film, right? You
Mhm.
know?
I mean, it's an interesting moment for the for of comparison in those two like kind of horrifying moments, like in like a film, like film criticism sort of moment. We don't care as much about that random chicken dying because it doesn't seem like anyone else knows her. Whereas in the first film, everyone knows this one chicken that they kill, so everyone's really sad about it, but you don't really know about it.
Right.
It's all kind of impersonal, but that kind of like works within the whole idea of like this machine becoming more impersonal and more
R-
alienated and more distance between the sort of like natural and big quotation marks
yeah.
uh, and the sort of impersonal machine of capital alienating humanity from nature, like going in one side from a
Conveyor.
behind a curtain and then appearing as a bucket is never going to be as horrible as like seeing someone get his head chopped off. But
Right.
that's kind of the point, right?
Right.
That's like it's only horrifying when you think about it and when you imagine the machine behind the curtain.
And no, and it's I don't know. My whole thing with the second film, right? Like the one of the biggest mistakes it made is it's like, why did you bring Mrs. Tweety back? You know, like I was shocked by their decision. Like I would have been okay with it maybe more if they hit it in the trailers, but they're like openly showing in the trailers. Whoa, main character. It's like it's so clear that they were like desperate to like try to market this thing, even though they barely did at all, and most people don't even know that there's a Chicken Run 2 yet. It's kind of sad too. I don't I always think it's kind of sad because the first film, right, it people were pushing for like best picture at the Oscars, I heard,
Hmm.
right? And the Oscars were like, "Oops, no." And it was a big reason for the creation of like best animated feature. And then this film comes over here, right, having its chance to get nominated for to get merely like nominated or getting a chance to potentially be nominated for the category that its predecessor helped create, and then they're like, actually no, you're not good enough, which it's not good enough, you know. But like,
Yeah, I mean, my as a movie, like when
yeah,
I first watched it, my general feeling was like that was all right.
yeah,
I didn't think it was terrible. Didn't think it was great. I was like, it's
same,
okay. Um, but the process of like diving into it and squeezing the communist blood from the stone uh, made me enjoy it a lot more.
no, that's so
Uh,
fair.
which is like that's the fun thing about like media criticism. It's the same fun that you get from queering Shrek. Is
Yeah,
like not necessarily like Shrek 2 is obviously fantastic on its own, but
yep,
even if those elements that are queer aren't intended or there, it's still fun and it makes the content more fun to engage with and to consume. And I had a similar sort of process with making Chicken Run 2 more communist. And
yeah,
part of that was enjoying Mrs. Tweedy's return and enjoying the sort of different the different type of sort of capitalist femininity that was projected through
yeah,
those different films. And if they wanted to make if they wanted to make another villain who was also like a femme fatale character, which is kind of the function of Mrs. Tweedy in
right,
this, they could have done that. But I kind of think that knowing the background of Mrs. Tweedy from the original film and knowing how she treated and
mm,
what her relationship with Mr. Tweedy was prior
right,
kind of helps her character as a femme fatale.
fair,
So like this is someone who's tried to make their way through the sort of the defined classic idea of marriage. It didn't work, and she
right,
hated her husband. So why wouldn't she be like, I'm gonna use these fucking idiot men. I'm
yeah.
gonna murder. I'm gonna take what they have. I'm gonna dump them when I don't need them anymore. And you're like, yeah, absolutely.
She's a business Black Widow.
Exactly. A business Black Widow is exactly what she is. And it works with the sort of 60s stuff.
Yeah,
And it's interesting, sort of historically, the periodization of these different femme fatale characters and like the 40s and then the 60s and then the sort of resurgence of them in the 80s and
yeah.
then the re-resurgence of them in the like 2010s. There must be some work like tracking economic progresses and declines and how these different changes to the family structure influence this cultural imagination of a Black Widow or a femme fatale.
Well, I think the thing that's so fascinating, like my lens of media criticism, I tend to go through things. I think films are fascinating, but also their grand splash they make on the world's really interesting and stuff. Because it's crazy when you think about how films like Shrek, right, like changed literally the game for all of like animation at the very least, and then more of cinema and stuff as is, and definitely helped usher us into this whole like franchise blockbuster era, right?
Mhm.
But it's so fascinating, right, with film and stuff because it's like there's so many lenses that you'll never be able to understand because it's like I've never lived in the 90s even, right? Like you I know you were a wee little lad as in the
Yeah,
90s
I
from
remember bits and pieces of the 90s. Yeah,
no, I was
I
born
was I was 6 when they ended, so
Fair.
bits and pieces.
Understandable. I was born literally 4 days after like 9/11, so it's like I never knew like that classic age. Like Chicken Run as a film's older than me, which is scary to say.
Mm.
It's weird when it's a weird feeling when films like you realize how old a film is and stuff, you know, that you grew up with. Because it's like one of the ones like we're hitting 20 years of Shrek 2 this year, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah. No,
Um,
the one that got me is a couple of years ago when Lord of the Rings turned 20, and
yeah,
I was like, oh, okay. Okay. We're we're aging and we're not being weird about it. Everything's okay. We all turn to dust in the end,
yeah,
and that's fine.
exactly. Media will outlive us. It's fine, you know. Or,
Yeah.
oh, that's a scary thought to think about, but it's like, I don't know. That's part of what makes me like yeah. It's that's part of
Just
the.
imagining my Chicken Run video outliving 100 years from now, and someone's watching that.
Well, it's like the question is YouTube gonna be around in like 100 years, and the answer is probably like, I no, I like we don't know with how things have gone because our world's kind of fallen into a capitalistic dystopia in a lot of ways as far as
Yeah, I
things.
mean, the chances of it, much of the digital only content surviving that long are low.
It's like well, which is just it's weird to think that we have this capsule in a bottle, right? And it's like the whole thing is where I don't know if you were noticing the big news like that's been happening with these tax write-offs for like series, right? That like
Mm,
these companies have been doing. It's so scary to me the fact that a piece of media could vanish forever, right? Someone's hard work because
yeah.
it's like I feel like media for me as an artist, because I'm like a filmmaker on top of like doing the whole YouTube shtick, right? Art out is one of the big things that is it winds up outliving you in some ways and stuff, or like it has its own identity past the creator of it, and that's just a fascinating idea for me to think of. You know,
Hmm.
I,
Yeah, it's very depressing that someone can just delete, move a file to a delete folder,
yeah,
and then that's it.
no emotional attachment. They just got some money out of that one for their tax write-offs. You know, it's like there should be way more of a system. Like I think the system should be right. If you tax write off something, you have to release it into the public domain for free. You know, that would be a better
Mm,
rule as far as that goes. You know,
yeah,
because
I'm
it's
fine with bringing back the guillotine.
yeah,
So yeah,
the
two
guillotine.
perspectives.
Yeah,
Yeah, just just for film executives maybe.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, it's like I'm always baffled at how like film people make the worst choices sometimes, right? Like I'm trying to like I don't know. Do you have any films that you've particularly wound up going to the theaters for and then just hated or
Uh, but films that I've gone that I've just hated. Not really. I tend to only go to the cinema if think I'm gonna think I'm gonna enjoy something.
that's fair.
There's because it's money.
I
If I think it looks shit, I'll just watch it on TV. I do watch a lot of shit.
yeah.
Uh,
Watching garbage is fun to do regardless because it's like you can look into it and be like, okay, what did you do to make this garbage, right? It's
yeah, yeah. I mean, I watched the Last Airbender TV show. Like,
oh
I like
gosh, yeah.
shit.
I like parts of it to be completely honest with you, but there's a lot that I've been disappointed with it. With it, like I like Iroh and Zuko's bits a lot in that show. To be honest with you, like it's not the animated show. Nothing will ever be the animated show, but at the very least, it's not Shyamalan.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was. It's hard to even enjoy the Zuko and Iroh bits because it was fine, but like it was nothing more than fine.
There, yeah. Compared to because Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the greatest masterpieces of all time.
I mean, it just feels like the sort of show that doesn't work when it's uh, transferred to an 8 episode
Yeah,
live action arc. Like it was a very it utilized its form well.
yeah.
Short episodes going all along so you can build relationships and do things gradually.
Uh,
It was nice.
I'm also I don't know if you got around to ever watching The Legend of Korra, but that show I think is also good and underrated. But
I didn't like it much.
fair,
I
but
I
yeah,
thought I mean, there's a lot parts of it. I enjoyed parts of that a lot more than I enjoyed the live action Avatar,
Right.
obviously. But like as a show where it's like, hey, let's be good, let's be cops.
Right. Yeah. No,
It's like,
I think that's fair. I think for me, season 3 is the one that I think's the best season of that show because the villains, the Red Lotus, are some of the most fascinating characters in the Avatar franchise and stuff within it. Um, Nothing's as good as the first show, but I've got a healthy appreciation for Legend of Korra. It has my favorite capitalistic character ever, Varric.
mm.
I don't know if you got to his parts of the show or
I watched it a long time ago, so
fair. No worries.
I did watch it all, but I can't remember the
You're
details.
completely understandable. Yeah, though, no, I don't know. Media, I think media is just a crazy thing about the world, right? It's like, I think it's crazy how, like, a show can create these, like, touchstone moments for people and stuff.
Hmm.
But no, it's, in the world of it's, like, always evolving. Like, for me, I'm a big, like, film, like, do you ever letterbox with movies or?
No, I tweet.
That's understandable. Uh,
Yeah, no, you'll know I'm watching something shit because I'm online going, this is shit.
yeah. No, I've been there where it's like I'm not tweeting about it. I'm just articulately like writing like a little few words about it in my like little letterbox journal and like storing it in because it's like I try to log whatever films I see, and oh boy, I watch a lot of bad films
Mhm.
over time. Worst film I think I've ever watched for my channel is I watched an animated film called Marmaduke.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yes, I think uh, is that like an old one from like the early 2000s?
No, it's actually one that came out in 2021. It was the first
Oh,
video on my channel to like actually like be like, wow, I got 1,000 views off of this. But they
mhm.
were like, okay, they cast Pete Davidson as the lead, and
Oh
they
my
made him
God.
sing a rap as this dog, and it is without a doubt one of the worst films I've ever seen in my entire life.
I mean that sounds bad, but it doesn't sound like even the worst film I've ever seen about dogs.
What's the worst film you've
Um,
seen about
have
dogs?
you ever heard of Love on the Leash?
I have not.
Full movies on YouTube.
Okay.
Love on the Leash is Love on the Leash is a movie. It was directed and written by this Chinese lady who got a bunch of funding from a bunch of Chinese Christian churches to make essentially a Christian film. So instead, what she made
Huh.
was The Princess and the Frog, except the frog is a dog, um,
No.
and the dog, for some reason, is horrendously misogynistic. like, like the dog's voiced by a guy who was the original actor cast in the Shrek Broadway musical, but he didn't actually end up taking the role. And
Okay.
he was just this comedian, and he was brought in and was paid with like wonton soup, and was and the director was like, can you just like say these lines, and there's not a great script, but I've got some things, and like, so he's like played this thing and doing a voiceover, this like lovely golden retriever, and he's just going, I'm a dog, I'm a dog, I'm a dog. Hey, I need to find a lady to fall in love with so I can become a human. Not you though, pizza face. And he kept saying things, and the director kept making him say them less naturalistically because she had an idea of how words should be pronounced. So he kept saying words in just completely bizarre ways for this woman.
Yeah.
Uh, and anyway, like the sort of plot unfolds where he he turns into a human, different actor, completely different actor with a completely different vibe when he's a human. He's just like this sort of generic hunk. Um, and but only during the night, during the day he's still a dog. And and I just everyone watch this movie. It's the
Yeah.
full thing's on YouTube. There's a one clip where the lady who discovered who get picks up the dog, says, "I've got to name you," and the dog says, "I have a name." And she says, "I'm going to name you such and such," and the dog goes, "My name's Alvin Flang."
See, I'm baffled with movies like that, like, because it's like the thing for me, right, as a filmmaker, right, when you make a film, you want to make something good. That's like the grand thing. You want something that'll touch people or something within that whole scheme. And then these companies that are like, we're gonna make the most bottom of the barrel films ever that no one would feasibly want to watch, but we're gonna put them out there and put them for free on YouTube with ads.
Oh, no, I mean, this the reason this is free and the reason this happened. This is not companies that did this. This is a woman who
Really?
believes in her art, who believe that's what makes it great.
Okay.
She believes in her art and she believes in what she's doing. The Chinese churches came and viewed some of it, and pulled all their funding because they were like, "What the fuck is this? This is not what we asked for." So there's no music in the movie. There's no soundtrack, and anytime it cuts, every establishing shot is just a shot of ducks. No matter what what's going on, it
Yeah.
cuts between scenes. There's
Okay.
ducks, and it's just beautiful. It's like it's one woman's weird, fucked up art that she's created, and it's beautiful and terrible, and I
Yeah.
love it.
That's I'm putting that right on my watch list. I'll have you know right now. Like top tier on the watch list. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, as I would encourage everyone to watch it.
I no, and honestly, fun movies are the best because I've sat through some um okay, just seeing the visuals. This looks like it'll be the film of all time. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And like
Uh
compared that to something like I think the worst movie I've seen recently was that fake Star Wars movie that Zack Snyder made for Netflix. I
was
can't
it
remember what it's
like
called.
Rebel Moon or something?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was terrible.
Yeah.
Love on the Leash is so much better than that because it's entertaining and how
Right.
terrible it is. But Rebel Moon was just like so boring.
No,
I was just
that's yeah.
going, this is dull. Everything about this is dull, and Zack Snyder shouldn't be allowed to make movies.
I one of the things for me within films and stuff is it's like I'm always for me I tend to actually enjoy like a lot of different like films and stuff out there, but like one of my favorite director I think like in like the mainstream Hollywood is James Gunn. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy to pieces,
Mhm.
the and stuff, and it's just I'm always baffled by choices that like some movies make. Like another one is, did you get to see the Five Nights at Freddy's movie?
No, was that the one about like what the animatronic things that come alive?
Yes,
Yeah, didn't see that.
it is. We watched it. I watched it in theaters with some of my friends from uni. And behind us sat a row of teenagers laughing or making jokes the entire movie, including like playing sound effects on their phones. Granted,
Mm,
the movie was it was kind of in the so bad it's good category in some ways,
mhm.
but like also like what the heck are you doing in other
Yeah,
ways? But it's like it
yeah,
because
that's a weird thing to do.
films and stuff, it's like I go to the theaters like on occasions nowadays, right? Because it's like
Mm,
also they're way too expensive for their own good sometimes. It's like
mm.
I don't know what you have for like a theater and stuff. We have a lot more local ones where I'm here, but while I was in Dublin I went to Cineworld, which was
Oh, yeah. Hey, my favorite, absolute favorite rubbish fact to tell people when they visit Glasgow. Glasgow has the tallest cinema in Europe. And it is a Cineworld. I know it's a completely useless fact.
fair.
Uh, it's it's nobody wants a tall cinema. One time the end from the Cineworld in a storm fell off the top and crushed a car. No one died.
Oh no. See, it's between that, but then like when I was in when I went to London for like a week, right, staying at hostels, right. Which, by the
Mhm.
way, Americans do use hostels when you go to Europe. It's such a nice experience. I don't know. I enjoyed the hostel I was at. I don't know if
Yeah.
Europeans view them differently, but it's like it's so social also, which is like compared to
I
like
mean,
huh.
most of my hostel experiences are if I go walking in the Highlands. They've got hostels around there. That's use them a fair amount.
I stayed at one in London called the Steam Engine that was very cozy and took care of things very well. And by comparison, the other one that I nearly switched to another hostel in the middle of my London trip, but was like right in the middle of the city. So I was like, okay, sounds good. No Wi-Fi in your room, no cellular service for some reason. It's like you're thinking because it's London as a city, it would hit that and stuff. Messy beds to go into is you're sharing this room with two other people, and I'm like, cool. I want to survive at the very least, and so I walked back out, went back to the original place that I was at because it was cozy, and yeah, also love London's museums. Oh my gosh.
Uh, I mean, if we it depends on the museum, I guess.
Fair. I mean, like, I think they're interesting to, like, learn things from. Like, I went to the Imperial War Museum and it was interesting.
I've never been to that one. I can imagine there's lots of portraits of evil people on the walls, I
I,
guess.
they've got, well, definitely because they've got, like, a Holocaust exhibit as far as that goes, so yeah.
Right.
But the thing for with me that I enjoyed is it's like because the thing that London does that I like is all y'all's museums are free when in America it's oftentimes nope $40 for entry, right? So it's like I went to
Yeah.
that one. I went to like what's the big arts one called again? It's
There's the National Gallery.
hang on. I've got photos from there, so I can scroll back and find it. But it was very nice. There, another thing that I discovered while I was in London, cream teas, that whole like service thing.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Don't have those sort of deals in America, but like the clotted cream on on a scone was very lovely.
yeah. We did that for my mum's birthday a few years ago. Brought her down for some tea and scones and shit.
I I got my first one at a cat cafe, which was fantastic because
Mhm.
cat cafes are inherently amazing. You know,
Yeah.
like the one I went to. Oh, okay, wait. Here we go. The one was the Victoria and Albert I went to.
Hmm. I've never been to the V&A either, actually.
That one also was a lot of fun. My whole thing for my London trip, right, was it was like I did rush tickets for like 5 West End shows because I
Mhm.
could, and it's like I got them for $25 each, which score,
Yeah.
and then went to those things. Oh yeah, okay. So you've probably been to Paddington Station before.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
think it's closed right now. There's terrible disruption right. Sorry, no, I won't get into the. If you get me onto rail disruption in London, I'll never stop.
you're good. Don't worry. So what I did while I was in London, because I realized I had to do, so Paddington Station has a Paddington statue. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, it'd be a funny YouTube short if I made him a marmalade sandwich and delivered it to the statue. So I bought the stuff, literally made a marmalade sandwich through the rails of London, and then
Uh-huh.
delivered it to the statue, then
And
left
then
it
was
there for him.
immediately eaten by about 900 pigeons.
Probably, but it was a funny thing to do for the bit. I love. I've not seen Paddington 2 yet, but I love the first film of
Oh,
those.
Paddington 2 is a masterpiece.
I've heard
Paddington
that.
2 is brilliant.
I but no, the first film I love it to pieces. It's actually like one of the perfect cozy films.
Yeah, but the first one is fine. I enjoy the first one fine enough, but the second one is just it's a perfect film.
Fair.
It it's it's got Brendan Gleeson as a hard knock prison inmate who just loves marmalade sandwiches. Hugh Grant as the performance which has defined the later years of his career, probably to some extent his detriment because he keeps doing it, but he's fantastic in it. Um, yeah, it's just fucking brilliant.
Yeah. I no, I definitely will need to check that. I definitely that's on the watch list next and stuff too. It's crazy. I've not seen Wonka yet, but like I know the director of that film directed the Paddington films, so I'm immediately a little
Yeah,
intrigued.
yeah. I have to say, not much is going to get me to watch Wonka.
Fair.
I know people. My partner watched it and she described it as a sort of movie that she should have liked because it had all like the bits and pieces that would make a movie that she would enjoy, but she fell asleep.
Ah,
in the cinema.
I to be fair, I've done that before. I did that during Jurassic World, which granted is a
Mm.
movie you can fall asleep to in the cinema. It's the Jurassic World trilogy was hot garbage.
Yeah, I think that might be the case with Wonka as well.
Oh,
I think a lot of it might be just quite boring.
fair. But the other thing is, it's didn't so it's gotta be weird being in the country where that whole like Willy Wonka experience thing happened.
That was beautiful. Never have I been so sad that I don't live in Glasgow anymore. Um, but what a story! What an unfolding story that was. I liked how every I love when Santa's grottos at Christmas time are terrible. I love that shit. I love seeing
Santa's Grotto.
yeah, like when you've got like Santa visiting places and
Okay,
like
yeah,
yeah. And oftentimes they're really shit. They're just really shit and they're expensive and you get these like kids
yeah.
crying because it's just so funny.
It's
So, to get that off season with an AI Willy Wonka experience, oh, it was beautiful. The way the fucking AI script with
yeah.
what was it, the unknown
I know the fact that they thought that was a fun idea for kids and stuff like
Oh, that they didn't give a fuck. Nobody
right.
thought that
Oh,
idea.
sure, you're
That
right.
wasn't an idea anyone thought of. That was an AI bullshit. That they.
I think it's crazy how things have come out with that. How like the guy who ran it wrote like 16 books with AI and published them on like Amazon. It's like
It's it's a what a beautiful demonstration of just how limited and shit AI is as a
yeah,
tool. Like no, you can't produce art with AI because that's not how AI works.
I,
Art is an expression of something of like creativity.
right.
AI smushes together random bits and pieces that it has accumulated and puts them forward. It can't do anything
I,
critical. It could just produce a copy and paste document.
Yeah, and then everything tech is like, no, no, AI is the future, guys. And so now people like in my fields, right, are fighting for our jobs because the people who are in charge of media are so out of touch with it that they think AI could handle the scripts as well as writers. When it's like, you can't be joking.
It's the same fucking like in my field as well, in the academic world, people are shitting themselves about like, oh yeah, students are going to be producing AI essays and whatever.
Yeah,
Nobody considering that like that's not the problem
right.
with education right now. It's not because students might cheat. Students have always cheated in certain ways. The problems are that marketization and closing down of all this stuff and blah 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 blah. But you can't replace a student can never turn in a particularly good AI essay because a good essay requires a critical perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not something that AI can. It's not even like an issue of like once the technology develops, it will be able to. It cannot have a perspective.
Right.
It just can't. That's not how it works. So it can't. It can't do that. It can't make art. It can't do all this
Yeah.
stuff. And then on like I talk about going off topic slightly, but I talked about this in a video I did on effective altruism and long
Okay.
termism. Long termism as a field is obsessed with AI, but obsessed with it not in the real material ways in which it affects people, like um, studios trying to cut corners and fire writers, or in the academic world and shit like that. They're obsessed with like, what if Skynet happens,
Right.
and what that ends up doing is uh, governments consult with these long-termist people about AI and basically make those people the heads of policy.
Yeah.
And those people often have connections to the corporate world that produce the AI tools. OpenAI's got massive connections to the tools that are being produced and long-termism. So they produce these like long-standing, oh, we're protecting you from creating like really bad AI singularities. When in reality, they're lobbying for laws to expand their use of it to circumvent labor laws and shit like that.
Yeah.
Um, and things like the AI Wonka experience is good for grounding people to remind them that fundamentally it's bullshit.
Yeah. I just think the things with everything about like it's good that all eyes are on that one. And it's like it's I think if disasters like that on a level, right? as bad as they are as they're happening, right? It's really fun to analyze like after and stuff. It's been hilarious and stuff too.
Been beautiful.
Just
Every sordid little human drama that's emerged from it has been like, oh, another little detail. Give it to me.
right. It's like I think it's one of the similar phenomena that we had like years ago with like how DashCon was like a phenomenon within that whole thing of like these disaster events, and that wasn't AI driven, but it's like I always think it's really interesting how eyes are always drawn on a train wreck in these
Mm,
kinds of events and stuff too, because it's like you see the thing going horribly wrong and you want to know, okay, what did it do, what's the like,
yeah.
how do I not recreate that in part, right? It's just the AI thing. It's like the funniest thing with the whole thing, right? It's a chocolate experience. The prize for the kids are one jelly bean and then like a half cup of lemonade. I
Oh, I think my favorite thing was the chocolate river that they made.
oh yeah.
Because it was like it could have been worse.
Yeah.
Like it could have just been like a brown painted piece of cardboard, but it was like it was just enough effort to really highlight how little effort it was.
Yeah.
And you all these videos of parents be like, "Ah, we're going we're going over the chocolate river. Whee! It's over."
See, it's funny for me growing up because for me realizing nowadays like this is totally one of those experiences where like where it's like I totally see how parents could like first of all it's crazy that so many people fell for it with the marketing, but let's be real, there's gonna be parents who fall for that stuff all the time and stuff. It's like you advertise
I mean,
anything well and you can make it.
I mean, parents need. I mean, parents are tired. They need a
Yeah.
place to take their kids. It's like we used to go to this place up in Aberdeen, up near Aberdeen, sometimes when we were kids, called what was it called? Fairy Storybook Glen. That was it,
Okay.
Storybook Glen, and we remember it as kids as just being like this magical place. Um, but like looking back on it, it was shit. It was like run down and like had all these like big castles that were clearly like about to collapse, made of like styrofoam.
Yeah.
Um, but our parents would took us there all the time, and one time we stayed there too late and got locked in
Oh
because
no.
my mum is unable to do anything on time, so we
Fair.
got locked in Storybook Glen once. But it's at least Storybook Glen had like a thought behind it.
Hmm.
Like it was a scam, but it was a fun scam.
Yeah. We have those with like I don't know if the UK has like for me, so I'm from New England in America, right?
Mhm.
So we're kind of like you but like Americanized. No, I'm kidding. We're kind of sorry. We're kind of like the country below you and taking all your rights, but like Americanized within that. And we had there were two theme parks that I remember growing up that we went to a few times. We got in the car. We used the Leapster on the car ride. I remember always. But there was like Storyland and Santa's Village, and I'd
Mhm.
be very curious to see how those hold up as an adult and stuff too within those things because it's like there's at least one theme park nearby that was like cool. It was called like Funtown Splashtown, USA.
Mhm.
Um, and then there was like the theme park that existed on the mall that was way scary. Like the thing about that one is that was a way not by the mall but like by the beach. The thing about it is it was probably fine up to all the codes. Way scarier feeling though, like with everything. Like it felt like a little crappier and stuff. And at those amusement parks, that's how it gets way scarier, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, it's I feel like the whole mask of childhood nostalgia is so fascinating, you know, because it's like you can look on an event so fondly, and then the minute you grow up, it's like, oh, that's what was really happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's a German theme park that we used to go to sometimes. As part of like, the trips that we'd do, and it had these. You know how theme parks have like different sections and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, the sort of three main sections of this park were like a fantasy land, whatever, fine.
Yeah.
A American West cowboy land, sure,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah.
whatever. It's Phantasialand in Germany. Come and see the American West.
Of
And
course.
then, um, what the last one, which is probably not okay, was like an African land,
Oh
um,
no.
with like rides like Black Panther, which was like it was the
Yeah.
best ride in the whole theme park, but like like it had all this like really racist African music of like drums and chanting and like
My
iconography and shit.
gosh.
You're just thinking back to that and being like, fucking hell, how did they get away with that?
I'm baffled by a lot of those things with like media and stuff too. It's like, or with like media or like places and stuff too. Like growing up in school wise, it's like the way that Americans were taught Thanksgiving growing up is so baffling and stuff, right? Because it's like
Mm,
you guys don't have Thanksgiving, but you probably know the gist of what it was and stuff.
sure, yeah.
But our entire schools like phrase the entire that entire like holiday as being as something where it's like, oh yeah, we were so peaceful to the Native Americans, but they didn't use Native Americans because it was the 2000s, and it's
Hmm.
like, I feel like so many of these cultural like this struggling for the trying to find the word for it, like this not understanding of like this, sorry, this decent of not this desensit being desensitized to so much like so many of these cultural issues and these like inherently like baked in like racisms and stuff that the schools had is really crazy to look at and stuff within it, and it's happens like everywhere because it's like there's so many movies growing up that did you guys did you end up growing up with like Peter Pan as a movie and stuff, or
Yeah.
it's crazy because you think that's like so normal at first, and then the more you grow up, it's like, oh my gosh, that was not normal.
I mean, looking at if you're thinking about like racism in the media, within the British context, like less than 10 years ago, you had uh, Matt Lucas and David Williams in full blackface
Oh my
on
gosh.
on the BBC. Yeah, and like they're still both of them are still uh, very much household names employed all the time. It's not affected their careers at all.
Yeah.
Like fucking um, TV from British comedy and TV from like the 2000s till the mid 2010s was like counting down the amount of time it would take until you saw someone in blackface
Oh
or
my
like
gosh.
oftentimes like brown face, like dressed as like Arabs and stuff, or rampant transphobia and homophobia.
Yeah.
It's like any comedy series you watch, like the Mighty Bush in 2005 had a character they fully blacked
Oh
up
my gosh.
several times. Um, it's like it's yeah, it's something else to real and like people are like, oh, we didn't know better back then. You're like, what do you mean? But
Like,
it was 10 years ago. What are
come
you
on,
talking
guys.
about?
And well, it's like I always think the whole thing is crazy because it's like my dad. I love my father, but my father's always like, yeah, I don't like the whole woke thing, and it's like, Dad, what do you mean by the whole woke thing? You know, it's like, you don't like being able to say certain phrases, and he's like, no. And it's like, okay, Dad, I love you, but like, please just understand more about the time. It's just, it's not about you. Please, sir, lovingly. As far as things
Yeah,
like that, but it's like, it's looking at a lot of like media and stuff, and it was shows that I liked in like the 2000s that still had stuff like that. Like one of the American shows I grew up with and watched a bit of was like Community, right? And they had like blatant blackface in one of the episodes. Like one of the episodes that I grew up with more for it because they had the whole Dungeons and Dragons episodes that show did.
yeah.
Between that or then finding out seeing a lot of things, and it's like it's crazy how much like comedies like were at that time, right? And how much things have like changed along, you know?
I mean, at least in that Community episode, the joke is that it's bad to do
Yeah.
blackface, and all the BBC stuff, they're just doing it. It's just like
Right.
there's no comment on the fact they're doing blackface. They just are doing it, and it's not like, oh, this person's doing blackface, isn't that risque? It's like, no, this character's playing. It's
Yeah.
just blackface.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
It's I feel like the whole thing with media and stuff is it baffles me because it's like there's still that generational gap, right? That's been so existing. Like younger people are starting to make it into media now, but it's like even compared to how it was like there's still it's still got a long way to go, right? And everyone who is an executive because capitalism, older, they've had their job for like years, so it's like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like if you want to bring it back to wider like societal trends, the ability of people to get into the arts, uh, whether like class wise, in which obviously intersects with race and gender,
yeah,
is being massively reduced. Like the UK, the ability to get any career in the arts, and I'm
mm-hmm.
sure it's the same in in the US, is just it's almost impossible unless you already have a degree of stability
Yeah,
and connections. That's why so many of our actors are from the same school, uh, went to the same universities, and they're all have parents who are either rich
yep,
or were actors or were producers.
right.
And it's like there's a have you ever seen the movie With Neil and I?
I've not.
Very good movie, and an actual an actual good movie. Um, it's about two struggling actors in the 60s. Uh, both of them are unemployed at the start of the movie and throughout most of the movie.
It's
Um,
called With What?
with Nail and I, so WITHNAIL and I.
Wait, how do I spell the Neil?
Uh, NAIL, I think.
Nail. With Nail and I.
Yep.
I can't, I'll find it after this. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's got Paul McGann and what's his name? Uh, uh, one second. Yeah,
No
with Neil and
worries.
I. Um, Richard E. Grant and Paul McGann are like the main characters in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's set in the 60s. It's about two struggling actors. They live in a admittedly horrible, but they live in a Camden, central London flat, and they pick up welfare to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout it, they don't have a good time. Um, but I remember watching this movie and thinking, fucking hell, these people can live off of welfare and have a flat in Camden.
Yeah.
That is not something that anyone can do right now. Like, it's not a realistic proposal to pursue acting like that. You need outside financial support from parents and from
Yeah.
or just constant working on the outside because the industry is so inaccessible.
Well,
And like
and you go. Wait. Sorry.
my brother's a filmmaker, makes a lot
Nice.
of short films. Um,
Good for him.
he's also a teacher as well because it's impossible to actually break into the sector.
Yeah.
Arts funding in Scotland is really terrible, really exclusionary, and like really narrowly focused. I've got friends who are musicians who can't make it in Scotland because of the particular like constraints and types of art that their funding bodies look to fund, which isn't, a friend of mine who makes Desi futurism music.
Mm-hmm.
Can't doesn't get much of a look in Scotland, but gets looks in other places. Um, and it's just like the whole creative world is just crumbling around us because of the constant push to make us to exclude anyone who's not
Yeah.
posh and to make everyone else work these shit jobs all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think the crazy thing, right, for me is it's like one of the things that's one of the reasons why I think we've been having a bit of a bigger resurgence of like YouTube and stuff, right, is because YouTube's one of the only sites where you can crowdfund your success, right? But even then, it from what I've noticed from my other creator friends and stuff, it pays so poorly even for like people who are doing well on the site. And it's crazy to me to think about that that's the case that we've been living in with things because it's like stifling the voices of people who are trying to emerge through this like financial gap, right, is it's going to create a thing where it's like if the only people who can create their voices are people who have that financial stability, they're not going to be as worried about continuing to pass making more people available able to have financial stability, and the cycle is going to continue from art from generation to generation, and it's heartbreaking to just witness as it's happened within the media landscape these past like years, especially with the major merger that we had with like Disney and Fox, right? Like that was
Mhm.
one of the big ones, and it's like there's less films being made, there's less films that are being picked up on spec, and it's like even compared to 4 years ago from when I started film school in 2020, things have already changed so much for the worse, you know?
Yeah. And like when there's only a certain number of people, privileged class of people who can make movies, those are the stories that get told and the
Yeah,
perspectives. And that's what allows, like, if there's not executives or people with power around you who are like, hey, don't do fucking blackface,
yeah,
uh, then all these like privileged white folk who are making this fucking shit comedy
yeah.
uh, are just gonna keep doing it and be like, oh, I didn't know, it's very funny, and like, that's why that happens, because the industry is just suffused with a bunch of rich white pricks.
Exactly within things, and it's like we well it's like and it's crazy because it's like you think that like as an industry you'd want to evolve or that there's going to be one point where things break, right? But the age of streaming I think has made things way worse for people, like, right? Like as Netflix, like it's one of those things where I guess Netflix is like a bucket, right? Like it's something where it seems like a really cool perk of the job, but it's created this whole thing of consumerism of trying to get like several like the bucket metaphor is very weird. I'm so sorry for that, but it's made things it's made things I think a lot harder and stuff as more companies have tried to compete with the model, and we're going back to this whole era of direct competition between each of the studios, with them all having their own streaming services, versus
Yeah.
the world of like independence that we kind of more, not independence per se, but like more choice or something that we had before. It feels like things are starting to close in on that whole bubble again, you know?
Yeah, I mean, as from a sort of consumption point, people are just gonna start pirating again.
Yeah.
Um,
And
because who can afford a subscription to
right.
all these things? Right?
And
I'm not gonna do that. Pirating is really easy.
and if you say you're really sorry to the creator after, they'll forgive you, you know? No.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like it's one of those things where it's like the whole thing for it is like I've gotten to the point where it's like I try not to pirate things, but I understand it where it has to be done, right? Because it's like
Mhm.
for me if I pirate things, like for anyone who's in the arts, if we pirate, it's basically we're taking a loan from ourselves, you know?
It's like, well, you pirate a Disney show. That's not good. Like, they're already not paying them fucking residuals.
Right.
Nothing's happening.
Yeah.
And it's not on the people who can't afford it to, because it's a classic thing in like the theory of piracy. It's like people are like, oh, they're pirating it so otherwise they would have bought it. No, that's not how it works.
Right.
People pirate things because they can't afford to get it,
Yeah.
and if they didn't pirate it, they wouldn't buy it. They just
Right.
wouldn't do it. So
I
nothing's being lost.
I think piracy winds up being a net positive for whatever piece of media is being pirated, because that means people like the piece of media in general. It means that, and means they're gonna.
Genuinely, yeah,
And it
yeah.
means that things are going to spread around better for it through word of mouth, and then maybe another person that they tell can legally buy it, and they'll get the attention. But the CEOs and stuff can't. But people can't see things within media that way.
I mean, it's the same with like, I would, I'm doing a book proposal right now
Yeah.
for my academic work. If and when that book comes out, I will send free copies. I would encourage absolutely everyone to pirate it, because fuck
Yeah.
academic publishers. I'm getting fucked. The amount of royalties I'd be getting from that book sale is like fucking minuscule. So
Right.
I'd send that to anyone. Um, and I know, I fucking these. It's the studios who are the enemy in this case,
Yeah.
not people.
It's like the whole thing with it with films like that. Like I always the most high profile one that I always keep thinking about is the whole Acme versus Coyote thing, right? Where it's like, did you hear the story behind that?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
where everyone's like, "Oh, this is a really good movie, guys," and then Warner Bros was like, we're gonna ask for a really high rate." Personally, I think that whatever money you could have gotten is better. Whatever money that people were willing to offer is better than blatantly getting a tax write off. But no. It's not like the U.S. government's gonna regulate these because it's like, personally, I think that there should be regulatory laws in Congress about tax write offs on media and stuff, or something that makes it that punishes the company for doing it to the piece of media, and then past that makes it so the piece is available for everyone to watch, because it's like, because I couldn't imagine like working on a project for like 3 years only to find someone being like, yeah, we're not going to share your piece at all.
Yeah, that's really
Actually,
depressing.
we're going to take a $70 million paycheck, so heck you. It's media's weird in general, I think, within things.
Yeah.
If
So, I mean, to take it full circle,
Yes.
to bring to a close and take it full circle,
Yes.
um, we should take lessons from Chicken Run, get organized, and make the studio heads pay and shout up and worry. Oh no, they're organized. They're
Yeah,
revolting.
exactly. So
The
you're
actors,
you're
the
saying
filmmakers are revolting.
you're saying that the filmmakers should build a plane and then just like take off into our own like
Yeah,
separate
we
one.
should build a giant chicken, and then I'm not gonna make that joke
The,
actually.
no Trojan chickens.
Well, yeah, make a giant chicken, and then either we could, you know, no, not gonna make that joke.
You're
Um,
it's
get organized and tear down the fucking studios and fight for labor rights and the rights of everyone in the industry,
and
and
that's what.
then
Yeah.
maybe take armed revolution to the United States, and we'll see where we go from there.
So the big question: the film industry, is it communist?
No,
I know, of course.
I'm glad they saw to that.
No, that was the whole bit. Well, thank you for coming on to the podcast today, and thank you everyone who's listened to this episode of Very Special Guest.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.